Thanks for joining us today for Jennifer Schaus and Associates in our Webinar Wednesday program. We are coming to you live from Washington, D.C. Our webinars are every Wednesday and are provided complimentary. They are recorded and can be downloaded from our website and YouTube channel, which now holds over 400 of our government contracting webinars. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, so if you do have questions for our speakers, we will have their information on the last slide of the presentation today. A special thanks to our educational sponsor, the National Veterans Small Business Coalition, for making these webinars possible. The NVSBC is the largest nonprofit trade association for veterans. Please visit their website for more information. Okay, and now a little bit about us. We work with U.S. federal government contractors, including product, service, and software firms. Our services range from market analysis reports to contract vehicles and compliance. More information is on our website. We also have opportunities for your organization to advertise in our newsletter. We now reach over 21,200 subscribers, and this includes both contractors and government. Contact us for pricing information with the email shown on the screen. As noted, we have over 400 webinars in our archive. As we continue to educate federal contractors, I would like to bring your attention to our webinar schedule for 2021. The full schedule of speakers are all confirmed now. First up is a monthly series called the GovCon Live Q&A Cafe. This is a live webinar series held each month. These will take place on the second Friday of each month in 2021 at 12 p.m. Eastern. We have assembled a group of 4 panelists who are subject matter experts on a specific federal contracting topic. The panelists will make a short presentation about the topics listed here on your screen and then take your live questions about that topic. So for example, January will kick off with our panelists covering CMMC on Friday, January 8th. Our panelists include attorneys, consultants, and other industry professionals, and you can sign up on our website under the Q&A Cafe tab. Sponsorships are available. Please email hello@jenniferschaus.com for a media kit with pricing details. Okay, in our second webinar series in 2021, we'll be covering each part of the DFARS, or Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations. Similar to our current FAR series, this will be a weekly series dedicated to defense contracting, its rules, and specific regulations. This series is also complimentary and will be held on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. We will run through the parts sequentially, which means that we'll start the year with the DFARS Part 201 and finish with Part 252 at the end of the year. You can sign up on our website under the DFAR tab, and again, sponsorships are available, and you can email hello@jenniferschaus.com for a media kit with pricing details. Okay, and now to introduce our speakers, Tracy Sheps and Brigitte Scott. Welcome, Tracy and Brigitte. We are glad to have you here with us today, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay. Hello, this is Tracy Sheps. I'll tell you a little bit about Cordia Partners. Cordia Partners has been around for about 20 years. We started out inside of a large CPA firm, and then have been running since then independently. We provide full outsourced accounting and back office compliance for government contractors and nonprofit organizations. We also implement systems from an accounting standpoint as well. Do you want to?
Sure. So I'm Brigitte Scott. I can give a little background on my experience. So I've been working in the industry for over 25 years. So I don't want to date myself too much. But I started out in public accounting, serving government contractors in the small to mid-size size business, mostly closely held government contractors. Went and worked in industry for a little bit as a VP of finance for a startup that went public. That was a great experience right there. And then came to work at the accounting firm where Cordia Partners started out at, and stayed there for a number of years, and was in the consulting group there, serving more still the small to mid-sized government contractors, and some very large government contractors. And then when I left there, came over to Cordia Partners about 3.5 years ago, and I lead the outsourcing practice for government contractors, but work on a number of consulting projects as well. So kind of a broad range of skills that I bring to the table.
Yes. And I'm Tracy Sheps. I'm a senior partner, and I oversee the full GovCon practice. And my background is also in government contracting, in industry and professional services, but mostly professional services. Okay. So our topic today is the perils of getting pricing wrong, and just talk about some of the details of that, what it means, and some of the impacts. So some areas, if you are proposing on a bid, and we all want to win, and we all want to make money. And by getting that incorrect, if you don't have the proper cost, know how to build up your cost, et cetera, there's impact on your cost proposal, your profitability, and your future budgeting and planning as well. From a cost proposal perspective, obviously it impacts your final proposal cost, which is where competition comes in. The win or lose, you want to price it so that you win but make a profit. It can also, even going in too low, can raise overall pricing questions. If you come in the lowest, that doesn't mean you're going to win, because the government may look at it and know that you're trying to just give a low cost, and maybe you can't perform. So there is a balance here on how you work on your pricing. The other area, it could raise concerns regarding defective pricing, and Birgitta will get into a lot more details about that, since it's such an important topic later on. Your profitability, so a very important point. You obviously, if you go in too low, you have lower gross margins, lower net income. That impacts a lot of things, not only the money you make and what you can pay your people, but also getting line of credit and any other types of credit that you might need, such as rent. You need to be able to prove that you can afford things. So there's lots of impacts there, just from a profit and loss perspective.
Definitely impedes your growth.
Yeah,
your growth trajectory is impacted greatly.
And profitability, so fixed price and T&M contracts, you have limited avenues to correct those. Fixed price is exactly what it says, fixed price. And so you have that sorry, a little blip. It's going to definitely impact even more back to the profitability, because you do not have a way to get more than what you have bid. Yes, there are times when you make an investment to get into a certain agency. You have to be careful, but I see it a lot. Someone wants to get in and get more quals in an area, things like that. So they'll go in a little lower, but you want to be careful. So you might go in a little lower on a fixed price, and then the effort ends up you might have missed something in the effort, and it's even more than that. So it's a balance in that area. And same with T&M. So you're building up it's very similar to a fixed price, typically, building up your labor rates, charging for materials, and there are limited avenues for correcting it, unless you get lucky enough that there's There's something with scope creep or areas like that that you can work out with the contracting officer. For cost reimbursable contracts, you will immediately show the variance, and that'll need to be explained. If you have a large variance, the government's going to wonder if you came in purposefully lower, knowing on a cost reimbursable that you might get back the difference in your indirect rates. And also, they've kind of gotten smart these days on some of those cost reimbursable. They're not truly cost reimbursable. There's a cap often put on those rates and fee as well. So all those things you need to think about for overall profitability. You know, and the big thing in your lower gross margin and your fixed price, you need to be sure that you're recovering all of your costs. We need lots of small to mid-sized organizations that have been pricing, going in with pricing for many years, and we find out they are not actually including everything in their cost. They don't know how to do a proper buildup of costs. So it's very important to think about that and be sure that you're recovering everything and getting at least somewhat of a profit. Another impact is on your budgeting and planning. Your forecasting will be impacted as real costs can vary greatly up or down from expectations. And you're forecasting for a reason. You want it to be as accurate as possible. Yes, a forecast and a budget, you know, are exactly what they are. And there's usually some small variances, but if you do a good job in forecasting, you come in at least pretty close. Your forward pricing rate will actually be impacted by your actual versus budget variances. So if you are someone that has submitted forward pricing rates to your cognizant agency and gotten that approved or at least acknowledged, and you are running, you know, either very much higher or lower, there's going to be some questions if there's huge variances in that, because you're not, it kind of shows that you're not, you know, looking at your business long-term, planning that you're viable, all those things that you may not think about. And then, of course, explaining to corporate management or a board or whoever you answer to is helping them understand why, you know, maybe your partners, why something's coming in so much greater when maybe you were trusted to price this RFP. You may actually be the CEO pricing it and go in really low, but there's normally others that you have to explain that to. And if your profitability drops, something I mentioned before, then you kind of lose credibility with your banks and other creditors. Okay, so as we promised, possible defective pricing, and what is that? Today it's called the Truthful Cost or Pricing Data Statute or Act. It's still commonly referred to as the Truth in Negotiations Act, or TINA. I don't know anybody that has stopped calling it that because it's just so easy to remember. Basically, it establishes the requirements regarding your certified cost or pricing data that is submitted by contractors. So that is supposed to support the proposal that you have submitted to the government. And many of these contracts, particularly a fixed price, will ask you to certify that cost or pricing. So you're providing that data, you're signing to certify it, and you are promising the government that this is accurate as of that time with everything within your knowledge. So it can be serious if you don't have that right. And it's required in certain circumstances. So if that FAR clause, the 15.4034, is in your RFP, then they're going to require you to certify those costs, and you want to be accurate.
So basically, when an auditor can prove that the certified cost or pricing data is not current, accurate, or complete, those three lovely words that we hear a lot, they can find that you're in a situation of defective pricing. So the current accurate and complete and certified cost of pricing data, all that's referring back to is essentially saying you've got the cost of pricing data you use was based on certain factors or certain types of cost data or pricing data that lead you back to certain areas. And so I've got some examples that I can share with you that would help put it in some sort of framework. But basically, it's fair and reasonable pricing or cost data that you're going to be presenting. It can be vendor quotations, historical accounting data that are trends. You don't want to just base it on, one point in time of a historical basis, but trends of historical nature. Documentation on changes in production volume or methods. So again, if you are looking at how things have changed over time and you can show that as your basis, that can be a marker or a type of cost or pricing data. If you've got documentation on a non-recurring cost, that can be supported. That's another example. If you are in a situation where you're doing a make or buy decision, and you've got documentation, decision points that you've used or decision markers, that would be another example. And essentially it comes down to any factual data that you've got that can support the cost of pricing data is what you want to use. So they're looking for, again, current, accurate, or complete. At the end of the day, the government, as you can see here, is entitled to recovery of any overpayment plus interest and the penalty amounts related to the overpayment. So what can happen? The negative perception the companies can face if the government has come up with the defective pricing perception or conclusion is not good. If they come back to you with a fraudulent intent that they realize or have concluded that you knowingly and with current knowledge have done this intentionally, that's even worse. So Tracy just recently, or just a couple of slides ago, said, that the current or the cost of pricing data, certified cost of pricing data, is needed for certain types of RFPs. So if you know that you're going in and you've been, let's say, for instance, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like a set-aside award.
Sole source.
Sole source or set-aside, that you'll need to more than likely give cost of pricing data, but you know that it's not based on accurate data. It's based on fictitious numbers. You haven't built up your costs accurately. Could be just based on the fact that you don't know how to, but it's going to result in non-current, accurate, or complete data. Then if they can prove it's fraudulent intent, you could face criminal prosecution for that. So it's something obviously all of us want to avoid. When we start talking about contract types, that's an important consideration from a DCAA engagement perspective. DCAA being the ones that will come in from DoD agencies and a lot of civilian agencies to review any of your invoices or any of your contract awards or pre-award. And interest begins with the payments, or when payments are first made to the contractor, any fixed amounts that are determined to be defectively priced. So interest, as we know, is the killer because it starts, the clock starts right away. So we've got here for cost plus fixed fee contracts, it's limited to the payment of fee if the fee was determined to be overstated based on defective pricing. So the cost of the cost, but it's the fee that they go after. And so we know on a cost plus fixed fee, the fixed part of that contract type is the fee part. So that's when it's going to start. So that's what it's going to be based on.
Yeah, and that's your profit there, so.
There it goes. For fixed price contracts, the interest begins with the first payment related to any of the part of the contract that was determined to be defectively priced. And at the highest risk, or their fixed price contracts are at the highest risk because they have the highest potential for the contract adjustment. And so again, if you think about a fixed price contract, you've got on the continuum of a profit percentage, a cost plus fixed fee contract is going to be at the lowest end because the government's taking the majority of the risk. T&M is essentially in the middle. On the other end of the continuum, the fixed price contracts, the government is taking the least amount of risk and the contractor is taking the most risk. So you've got the ability to go in with a higher fee percentage or profit percentage. So that's going to be where the highest potential is for the contract price adjustment.
So root causes of getting your pricing wrong and defective pricing audit activity. They were to come in an audit, and I've been through several proposal audits in recent times within the last year or two, and they will come in and look at how you built your pricing. They can do this if they think it was either extremely low compared to other offers, extremely high, or just because they're the government and they can. So they're going to look at your controls and determine if you had controls around your pricing, which is something you should have a policy on typically, on how you price. You're looking back at past performance. Have you built up your costs correctly? Are there allowable costs, only thing that's included, or did you throw in something that was unallowable? And you definitely want to have some good controls if you are going to have certified cost or pricing. And most of the time you're going to have at least, some contracts that have that if you're working with the government. So the controls around that preparation are very important. Okay. I've seen a couple of instances where, I don't know, maybe the CFO or the CEO didn't have time to do a lot of work on the proposal, and they handed the pricing down to somebody with, fancy Excel skills. But to find out there was an error in there, nobody looked at it. So that was a problem. Not only if they don't come out and audit, if you get that lucky, it could be underpriced, and we've already talked about what that can do. So the audit is even worse. They can tell that you've made a mistake or that you intentionally left something out. So the controls should be sufficient to enable the certifier to confidently conclude that the data submissions are current, accurate, and complete, which Brigida has said a couple times because it's very important. The current, accurate, and complete as of the date of negotiation. So as of the date that you have that agreement on pricing, not submission, the date you have an agreement, that's when you are confidently saying, this is our pricing. And this is accurate, complete, and current.
So So some other root causes of incorrect pricing could be proposing positions that can't be filled with the budgeted salaries. So you developed your entire proposal with particular budgeted positions, but then you go to fill those positions and it doesn't equate. You need an engineer too at a particular salary, and you've only budgeted, let's say 20% or 80% of that salary, and you just simply can't fill it. So, same thing with the software engineer, an analyst, any position is just not feasible for you to fill those positions. So now you're stuck.
Yeah, we definitely see this.
Yeah.
And a good example is someone moving from Tennessee, to the DC area, and they're using pricing from the Tennessee area for salaries, or they're just thinking, oh, the job market, is here. I think I can get people. They're not actually looking into it with backup of what those salaries will really be.
Another area is poorly developed indirect expense budgets. So we talked about that a little earlier, but you develop your indirect expense budget and you don't worry about how you develop your indirect rates, the impact, how it all fits together. And so you've got an incorrect wrap rate. So the wrap rate being the combination of, let's say it's a fringe, overhead, and G&A, the combination of how those all fit together and come up with a 1.x or 2.x wrap rate on, $1 of direct labor. And so if you're not building up your indirect expense budget accurately and not seeing how that affects your rate, because you're doing your rates maybe on the back of an envelope or a napkin, and you're not basing it on hard data, you're going in with a wrap rate that's just a casual calculation, that's all going to affect your budget, and it's all going to affect your pricing. Another area is the basis of estimate that have gaps that aren't addressed. So basis of estimate comes with your proposal. So you are documenting your assumptions that built up your pricing. And now comes reality and you've been awarded the contract. So you've got your award, you go back to the basis of the estimate, and you can't fill all the gaps that are there, but you still got to perform on the contract. They've got to pull from other resources to fill the gaps that you've got. And that kind of feeds into the last item here, the assumption on workload and costs that aren't realistic. So, and it kind of fits into all of these really. The workload, you assume so many hours for an analyst, so many hours for the software engineer, at a cost of, something that was in the Tennessee marketplace, and it just doesn't all equate. So you really have to do your homework to get it right and document your assumptions so you get your basis of estimate correct. So, one of the things you really need to be hearing and take away is that pricing is a lot of steps in getting it right.
Not throwing something over the fence.
No. A couple other root causes of incorrect pricing: cost reductions to attain the perceived winning price. So you're competing for an award, let's say, and you believe the winning price is at a certain marker. And so you take that's your perceived kind of goal that you're trying to reach in your pricing. So you take your own price reductions to attain that goal. Those are price reductions that come right out of your profit in order to get to that winning price. And so that's, instead of pricing it, say, bottoms up, where you get to the actual accurate winning price or the price that you go in your mind with a winning price, you're taking voluntary price reductions or cost reductions that are going to affect your ability to win. Inadvertently leaving out cost data, again, that goes back to really thinking through what it's going to take and building up your basis estimate accurately and not leaving gaps in there. And then what Tracy was saying with the CEO and CFO handing off the calculations to a junior staff that's got, mad Excel skills, but everybody makes mistakes. We're just human. And so everybody needs to have their work reviewed. And you can make a simple calculation mistake, and that can cost you a bundle.
Just some simple steps, very basic, but a lot of people don't do these things to basically avoid these pricing issues and any issues during an audit where you can just feel at ease, even if the government does say they're going to come in and review your pricing. Give it a sanity check. Look at all the proposal requirements. Some of them are just endless and painful. But make sure you're covering them. They're there for a reason. If you don't meet them, then they'll throw your proposal out. Determine what your expected gross margin and your net income are before you actually do the pricing. What is the expectation on this type of project, this type of work, from your experience? Or ask your friends. Most all government contractors have friends in the business, even if they're competitors. And they're usually all willing to help you, or consultants. If you seek the help of consultants to help you price, they might be able to help you determine what makes sense there, or maybe what's allowed, what's considered extreme. And what Brigitte just said, review all of your calculations, give it another set of eyes, probably 2 sets of eyes, because it gets to be, by the time you're ready to submit that proposal, you've looked at it so many times, it's blurry. And then ask yourself, does it seem realistic for this work, for what they're requiring, looking back at all the proposal requirements? Does your bid seem realistic for that type of work? And then hopefully this will keep you out of any of those issues that we just talked about, and also keep you profitable.
Thank you, Tracy and Brigitte, for a great presentation and sharing your time with us today. And thanks to everyone who joined us. The recording of this webinar will be on our website and YouTube channel within the next 24 hours. Please join us this Friday as we cover each part of the FAR, and join us next Wednesday for more hot topics in federal contracting.
Yeah. 2027.